Hello, and welcome back to the Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, where each episode we bring you a fresh and insightful interview with one of the film industry's top directors, conducted by one of their peers. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on Google Play Music, iTunes, Stitcher, or on our SoundCloud page at soundcloud.com/The Director's Cut. And if you're enjoying the Director's Cut, please take a moment to like, share, or comment. We love hearing your feedback. This episode takes us behind the scenes of director Simon Curtis's new film, Goodbye, Christopher Robin. The film offers a glimpse into the relationship between children's author A.A. Milne and his son, Christopher Robin, whose toys inspired the Winnie the Pooh stories. As the books become an international success in England after the First World War, Milne's family grapples with the cost of fame. In addition to Goodbye, Christopher Robin, Mr. Curtis's directorial credits include the feature films My Week with Marilyn and Woman in Gold, as well as episodes of the television series Tracy Takes On, The Practice, and The Black Box. Following a recent screening of the film, Mr. Curtis spoke with director Bob Balaban about filming Goodbye, Christopher Robin. During the conversation, Mr. Curtis discusses the casting process for finding Christopher Robin, why he likes to shoot with 2 cameras on set, and how he came to direct the film.
Well, I love this movie, Simon.
Thank you, Bob. That means a lot to me.
I'm really glad you made it because I've heard of, obviously I know Winnie the Pooh. I'm not quite as familiar with it as you probably were, but I had no idea of this story. When did you find out about it?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of people in America assume everyone in Britain knows this story, but they don't. Unlike my previous 2 films that I sort of pushed into existence on a passion of mine, this is a script that came to me. And Frank Cottrell Boyce, the writer, is a writer I've long admired. And I just love the fact that it was about the creation of this famous book, but also about so much else as well.
Were you surprised when you read the script?
Yes, I was. Yes, I very much so.
Wow. How difficult was it to get this movie made?
Well, we were lucky because Fox Searchlight believed in it. As a lot of people here know, it's about the people who make the decision about films on this level getting made are in fact the actors, because the studio always want one of 5 people, and the film that those actors choose are the ones that get into production.
Wow.
And with Donal and Margot, that they liked the script so much and joined us was the reason we got across the starting line.
That's great, because I've never seen Margot do anything like this part, actually. You almost don't recognize her in it.
Yeah, I mean, she's been living in England, and she had her own relationship with Winnie the Pooh stories and her own mother, and she just loved the script, and I was thrilled that she wanted to take it on.
Well, you had your 2 adults first, I imagine.
Yes.
How difficult was it to find this amazing boy?
But it's so funny because the studio is so obsessive about the leading actors, and they just assume we're going to find this kid, and I didn't assume anything of the kind. The last 9-year-old boy who'd never acted before I'd cast was in fact Daniel Radcliffe in David Copperfield.
Well, that worked out.
It worked out for him, yeah. We went on a trawl of kids in the UK. Anyone he had to be 9 because you can get more working hours out of a 9-year-old. But the amazing thing about Will, who is as extraordinary in real life as I think he is in the film, was that not only had he never been in a film before, he'd never acted before. And he had joined a drama club 2 days before the casting department wrote saying, "Do you have any boys who might play Christopher Robin?" He wasn't even their star pupil or whatever.
How many boys did you see?
It was definitely in the hundreds, and we kept recalling them. But we did a clever thing that the top 3 boys we set up a big day at the location, the Cochford House location, with a little crew, with Donal, and the top 3 boys, and we did 2 hours worth of scenes with each of them.
Wow! Did they memorize them at that point?
We tried to do as varied a group of scenes as possible. A sad one and a happy one, playing cricket, blah blah blah, actually, that turned out to be a really clever idea because you could see who could jump from one mood to another. You could see who Donal warmed to. And then we had like a 10-minute cut film for each of the boys that we could send to Fox in LA and so on. And it just made the decision inevitable.
Did Will stand out immediately? Could you tell? Or was it difficult choosing between them?
Going into that last day, he wasn't my favorite. Yeah, it seems strange now. But the other thing was that I'd asked each of them to tell a sad story. And the other two boys told us a silly story about something at school. And he, quite unexpectedly, told this incredibly emotional story about his grandfather passing away.
Wow.
And it was like, he got really upset. It was really upsetting. I was just going to stop it. But it was clear because he's a very happy boy from a lovely family, but he was in touch with a sadness as well. So that was really extraordinary to see.
Because it's hard to imagine the movie without that boy.
I completely agree, yeah.
And the working experience with him and the other actors, did you rehearse much with him? What was it like?
But it's like they always say, "Oh, you're going to get weeks of rehearsal," and they say, "Well, actually, Margot's got to go to Japan." So we didn't have that much rehearsal. But Donal was particularly brilliant with Will, and it was quite protective of him, but also would say, "Today I'm going to be the mean dad," whatever. And sometimes during a take, he'd ask a question 3 times to get till he was happy with the answer.
Wow.
Because sometimes when you go in as a director, it's it disrupts and all of that. And I was actually a lot of my job with Will, because his instinct seemed so good so much of the time, was to stop. At a when you say cut, as you'll know that everyone descends, the makeup, the costume, and everyone's saying, "Oh, I really like that take," and I didn't want all that because I didn't want to make him conscious of it. So my job was to give as much sort of space as possible.
Have you worked except with
Daniel?
With a child starring in a movie?
A couple of things I did at the BBC had very young leads, but this seemed, as you say, the emotional heft of the film is on that boy's shoulders in many ways.
Wow. Did you ever find yourself with your 2 children, and you're very busy and you've always been working a lot at many things, did you ever have an A.A. Milne moment where you felt, I must stay home for a while and catch up with my life?
Well, I've been very lucky because when my kids were growing up, they're both university and beyond now, almost all the projects I did were London-based. So, that's the beauty of London, or has been pre-Brexit, which is that, the television, the film, and the theatre industries are all in one city. The BBC work I did was by and large London-based, so I was quite lucky like that.
So distributing a movie that's personal, that's wonderful, and has a wonderful cast, but in a world of superheroes, how does a movie like this survive?
Well, that's obviously the question du jour, isn't it? It's and it's very nerve-wracking as you go through the process of getting to lock the film, because everyone has a different idea of the journey it should take. Should it go to festivals? Shouldn't it? That festival wants it. That festival doesn't want it. Should we stay out of festivals altogether? Shall we go at a time where there are 6 or 8 speciality films opening on the same day, or wait till later in the year? There's all of that, and it's it's a real crapshoot. I'm disappointed that the film has performed less well than certainly I hoped, but it is a very strange time we're in at the moment. Could
it be time of year?
We had some things, we were restricted in some ways because Disney have a Christopher Robin film coming out next year, I believe. It's certainly in production. So I don't quite know the detail between Fox and Disney, but I don't think we were able to postpone to next year. So that restricted the timing. Do you know what I mean? But it is, no one really prepares you. Everyone talks about when you're wanting to be a director, it's about you've learned how to work with actors and learn about lenses or whatever. But no one says one day the studio are going to show your film to a bunch of critics in private to tell you what your Rotten Tomato score is likely to be. And that's the kind of thing that happens now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know what your next film is going to be?
I don't. I mean, I really hope it's going to be something in the United States, and I'm inching towards a couple of them. But,
wow.
You know, it's again waiting for everything to line up together.
Do you prefer working here?
Well, I love America. I'm married to an American. I've been here along this summer because my wife's actually on a show at the Roundabout, But
she's brilliant in it, and if you haven't seen the play, it's quite wonderful.
Time in the Conways.
Yeah.
But so I've always loved American actors and American subjects. So yeah, I really hope that works out.
Do you think you will find a movie that Elizabeth might be starring in?
That's
is that a goal?
No, because it's hard enough directing without it being, you know, I think she always likes to go home and slag her director off, and that's hard if I'm the director.
You could be be talking shop. 24 hours a day.
No, I think if it's the right thing, of course, but I mean that's not the only objective.
Now, before we ask if anybody has any questions, I wanted to ask you a question, Simon. You began in theater,
I did.
I think, and you worked with some fantastic directors who I must have been very interesting. Were you very influenced by them in your directing?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a teenager, I was obsessed by theatre rather than film. But then I was, so I had this in my 20s, I was very much in the theatre. In my 30s, I was very much in television at the BBC. And I think it's been, in Britain, we've been very lucky that the subsidised theatre and the BBC have been a training ground for directors, because possibly more than here, directors are allowed to learn on the job and survive making mistakes.
But you produced a lot of theater and film and television as well, yes?
Yeah, I have, and I mean that's put me into contact with lots of actors. But I think I would have learned a lot from the actors I've worked with too.
Do you have any one or two either actors or other directors that you produced with and for? Who influenced you that you could
yeah, but I mean, I mean, I would say, because I was an assistant director in the theatre for a long time, that every rehearsal I went to, good, bad, or indifferent, was a learning experience. I mean, I was at the BBC. My job was to bring theatre shows and reinvent them as television events. And you know, I think I gave Stephen Daldry and Sam Mendes their first goes with television cameras, and so as a director, I've been on other directors' sets probably more than most. And you know, as I say, good, bad, or indifferent, you learn from everyone.
Well, I think it's something people don't think about much, which is if you're an actor who becomes a director, you've seen a lot of directors working, but if you're a director, and you've always been a director, you often have literally never watched anybody else do this.
That's right. And you're sitting on the set thinking, my God, does the crew think I'm doing this right or wrong? You know, it's that's exactly right. But I feel different because I have been on a lot of other sets.
Also, your background in theater, you've actually rehearsed, which many movie directors A, hate rehearsal, and B, have never done it anyway.
Yeah,
so
that's right. That's right.
It's kind of a whole different approach to actors, I think.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the first thing to say is that is England, and they were very much parents in that class at that time. And the main source was Anne Thwaite's biography of A.A. Milne, and she was very much around. But if you read Christopher's memoirs that he wrote later in life, you know, he does say things like, I only saw my mother for half an hour in the morning and half an hour at night. But during those 2.5 hours, she was wonderful. Do you know what I mean? But I think it was quite natural in England at that time for a child to be born and handed over to a nanny, and then we'll see you at the wedding or whatever, you know. And you know, a lot of English men at that time, their first and often their only great love was their nanny, which is sort of why England's the country it is.
But you actually had a few different books. I don't know if they were useful at all, but Milne wrote a book.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
and also Christopher's book.
Yeah, but the main source was this biography by Anne Thwaite.
The biography was, But I think you said that Milne was very not terribly personal and didn't really and avoided some of the more difficult topics in his book.
I don't think so.
Did I make that up?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but it sounds good.
But he might have.
Yeah, he might have done. Yeah.
Anybody else?
And Alexa. Yeah, yeah. And Ben Smithard is the DP. Yeah, I'm glad you think that. I mean, I'm very grateful to Ben. I mean, he did My Week with Marilyn, which we shot on film, and 2 or 3 of the things I did at the BBC, including Cranford. And his passion for this film was a joy to behold. And yeah, we were the film we looked at, Tree of Life, the Terrence Malick films. He wanted that sort of dreamy thing. But I think that Ben did a brilliant job, and I credit him. Sometimes directors get the credit for that, but I totally credit him.
Did you find yourself shooting anything differently because of the youth of your star? Did you use multiple cameras with him ever?
I always use 2 cameras because I think you get the things you plan, and you get the happy surprises as well. Mm-hmm. But the tricky thing with a kid is he always has to leave the set, because you only have so many hours. And in the case, I don't know if it's true here, but in England, he was always being dragged off to have a school lesson, on the set. And at one point, when we were doing one of the most emotional scenes, they said, he's got to go, he has to go now, it's the law. I said, well, what is this class he's going to do? And they said, drama. And I thought, that's something crazy, but that's the law.
You said to me something outside. We happened to be talking about Judi Dench, and will you tell that story of Judi Dench coming to work?
That we were in prep at Twickenham Studios, a place I love in West London, at the same time as Victoria and Abdul. And I've been very lucky to work with Judi Dench several times. And so I said to her, do you want to meet Christopher Robin? But she so loves kids. And but on the day they were due to meet, our first day, and I think the day she was doing camera tests, he was unwell. I think he was sort of nervous. And so I wrote to her and said, sorry, he's nervous. And she wrote back and said, well, I'm nervous too. And I just thought that was a real story of actors, a 9-year-old who'd never acted before, and arguably the greatest actress of all time, were both equally nervous. It was sweet.
Do you stay in touch with Christopher? Have you spoken to him since the movie?
Yeah, I mean, he came here for the opening a couple of weeks ago, and he was so excited to come to New York because he wanted to see the steam coming out of the sidewalk. And he's a really lovely boy, and I don't know if he'll act again or not, but I wish him well, whatever he does.
Do you think he'll survive the renown, the being recognized? Is that going to be hard? I think
he seems really balanced. He's been taken on by a very good agent. But
it's amazing to think of Christopher Robin
his
having
family
an agent.
By no means a sort of pushy parent.
No stage mother?
No, definitely not. And I suspect he'll be fine whichever direction he goes in. I certainly hope so. He's a lovely, lovely boy. Everyone was in love with him, on our set, and he just was a joy to
Did he have
with.
Any hard days? Were there any days that were particularly
He hated
difficult?
being in the bath.
Because?
Well, I don't think he wanted to be
in front of
trunks
people,
or whatever, But and he got tired, quite understandably. But no, I mean, he talked. I mean, at the press we were doing together, he talked very much with affection of the time. And he only missed half a turn because we shot a bit of the summer, so it wasn't like. Some of those kids, in a TV show or wherever, it changes their life. He went right back to school, but he told the story about walking home from school for the first time with 2 of his friends, and the bus went by with his face on it and the poster, and he said, that was the greatest moment of my life, Simon. So it's sweet, but it's a risk, and obviously it's a film. One of the many themes of this film is the dangers of fame, and Christopher Robin, you could argue that is one of the first ever child celebrities. And again, in defense of the Milne family, they couldn't have predicted this would happen. And it was unprecedented. It was a voyage into the unknown. But obviously we were thinking about that. But as I say, he's from a lovely family, and it bodes well at the moment.
Does he have brothers and sisters?
He's got an older sister who was an extra in one of the scenes.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. And yes?
Well, it was shot in 4 11-day fortnights. I don't know if that's a phrase you use here, but it means 11-day fortnight is a 6-day and a 5-day. 6-day and a 5-day. So that's 44 days. And I think he could work 5 hours. I think 5 hours maximum, but not every day. I'm not entirely sure what the rule was. Well, in Britain, you tend to start at 8 and finish at 7. Doesn't seem it. But the good news is you don't roll. So Friday starts at 8. It doesn't start at 3 p.m. Yeah.
Is there any difference between shooting in the United States and shooting in England? Are there any?
Well, I think that rolling hour thing is very different. You know, I mean, as I say, you tend to start every day at 8 a.m.
Well, when you're night shooting, it would.
Well, then you go into a different schedule at nights, yeah. But it isn't that thing of turn around and rolling. I'm not quite sure how.
But do you find any inherent differences in crews between the United States and England?
No, I mean, I've been very lucky. I've done a few things here, and I've always loved the crews as much as I have in England. The craft services are dangerously good in this country. I find that a bit of a problem. You know, I just try and, I mean, I think my job as a director is to cast the best people on both sides of the camera and then support them to do their best possible work, you know. And so I pride myself on supporting the people I work with. And, you know, by and large, I've been very lucky in that.
Have you used the same editor for your features?
No, I've used different editors in each one. I mean, I would have had my editor from Woman in Gold on this if he'd been available, but you know what it's like. I mean, sometimes it's a terrifying thing to work with a new person, and then you're happily surprised, you know.
Are you very hands-on in the editing room?
I love being there, but I love the collaboration, and I love going in and giving notes and then disappearing and then seeing what they've come up with.
Do they present you with a first cut that you haven't seen, that you haven't worked on?
What I like to do is go in as soon as I finish shooting and see the rough assembly and give a whole load of notes and saying, well, you know, don't like that or try that, and then disappear for a week or so and then come back and start fine cutting.
Did the movie lose any big chunks of script?
Yes, it did. That's a good question. And there was much more World War I trench stuff, and in fact a whole other character who went, because we realized a little of it went a long way. Mm-hmm. And I was really proud, actually, that a couple of Vietnam vets came to the screening in New York and thought the PTSD of it was really accurate and wanted all their comrades to see it too.
And so at the time in that period, so unknown.
Completely. And also in England, anything to do with mental health, there's no dialogue for it whatsoever. And
still,
much less now. But you know, I had no idea that the reason Winnie the Pooh became so famous so quickly was that it was a way for readers to recapture the innocence of the lovely days before the trauma of World War I, or that Milne himself was suffering from PTSD. And I think so was Daphne in a way. She couldn't face repeating the agony of her husband going away with a son.
But the people who read the book in the beginning when it came out probably had no idea of what the author had been through.
No, but they were finding in the innocence of it, it was a way of recapturing England, right, and innocence and childhood and so on. But I think, you know, this film, in its quiet way, does speak to the horrors of war, that it's not just the men and women who fight in the war who are impacted by it, but their spouses and, in fact, their descendants too. It goes on through the generations. And Christopher Robin, you know, his life was altered by World War I, even though he was not born when it ended.
Right. Somebody had a question.
I don't know.
I think Christopher, but maybe is there any truth to that? Because it seems as though Christopher, on purpose, made the decision not to have his life affected by the money.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't actually know. But a friend of mine, Roger Michel, who's a fellow director, told me a story that he went to the bookshop with his parents when he was a boy, and that Christopher happily signed his copy of Winnie the Pooh for him.
Wow.
So that made me feel he was at peace with it on some way.
I don't know if you say this in the movie or not, I can't remember, but it seemed especially true to everything that you were doing in this movie, that the real Christopher Robin maintained a closeness with his nanny for for the rest of her life, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, I put that quote at the end, which is in one of his memoirs, but it said, "New was always a part of me," which spoke to their closeness.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
And Kelly was fantastic.
Yeah. She was. Yeah.
Anybody have anything else?
Well, I think that is, that's in all the memoirs, that he just hated everywhere he went. People started chanting, Winnie the Pooh rhymes at him, and that is well documented.
That's tough.
Yeah, it is.
But he made a life for himself.
Yeah, definitely.
Just
and that irony of that, that whole thing about going to war as a way of becoming anonymous, and the irony of his father having to help him do that. It seems like such a very complex idea.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for coming.
Here.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. Don't forget, you can check out past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to subscribe to our podcast to stay up to date on the great discussions we have coming up. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please like, share, and leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks again for listening, and have a great week. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.